So 6.6 trapezoids and kites part 1. You should have filled these in using your textbook. So we'll talk about each one. The first one, it says a trapezoid is a quadrilateral with exactly one pair of parallel sides. Remember, quadrilateral means it has 4 sides and it equals 360 degrees. The parallel sides are called the base and the non-parallel sides are called the legs. And two angles that share a base of a trapezoid are called base angles. I've highlighted those, circling them in the same color. So the green would be base angles and the the red would be base angles. And the last is an isosceles trapezoid, is a trapezoid with legs that are congruent. We talked about an isosceles triangle, and now we're talking about an isosceles trapezoid. So here you have your legs that are congruent. But you still have your base, which are parallel. Your sides that are your base, and they are parallel. Okay, so theorems that you know. If a quadrilateral is an isosceles trapezoid, then each pair of base angles is congruent. So here, I know it's an isosceles because it has these two congruent symbols. So the top two angles are congruent and the bottom two angles are congruent. So let's just say this was 104, then this one would be 104. And remember, a quadrilateral equals 360 degrees. So the two of these would also have to be the same thing. These are consecutive angles, which mean they have to add up to give you 180. So 180 minus 104, these two angles would both equal 76 degrees. Okay, and we'll do some examples like that in a minute. Number 2, if a quadrilateral is an isosceles trapezoid, then its diagonals are congruent. So here is an isosceles, so these diagonals are equal to the same thing. If one's 10, the other one is going to be 10. Number 3, if a quadrilateral is a trapezoid, then the mid-segment is parallel to the base. So here we have a trapezoid and we have the mid-segment. It's cutting the trapezoid in half. It's parallel to the two bases. And the length of the mid-segment is the average of the length of the bases. And here is the formula. You don't have to memorize the formula. Obviously, you'll be able to use your notes on your test, but on the EOI, you're given the formula. You just have to know how to use it. Okay, so knowing all of those things, and again, you'll be able to use these notes for your tests, and you'll see these same types of problems. So make sure you're working these out. So remember, a quadrilateral equals 360 degrees. So let's look at example 1, these 4 problems. Here I have a trapezoid, and it is an isosceles trapezoid because these symbols here tell me that these sides are congruent. So these are your legs, and these are your bases. How do I know it's the base? Because the base, they're parallel to each other. And so it tells us that the base angles are congruent. These are the base angles because these angles share a base. So angle 1 is going to equal 96 degrees. Okay. And then if this is 96 degrees, how do I find angle 2? Remember, these are consecutive. So they add up to give me 180. So I would take angle 2 equals 180 minus 96, which equals 84 degrees. Same thing for the next one. It's an isosceles trapezoid. These symbols here tell me these two sides are parallel, so that would be my base, and here would be my leg and my leg. Your base angles are congruent, so you're talking about these two angles that are congruent. So if this angle is 79 degrees and angle 2 is also 79 degrees, and then in order to find angle 1, you take 180 minus 79, which is 101. Okay. Next two are actually, you're doing the same thing, but you're actually having to solve for the variable. So here's an isosceles trapezoid, and these two angles, these two symbols are telling me that these legs are congruent. So if they're congruent, then all I want to do is take these two expressions and make them equal each other. So I have 3x minus 3 equals x plus 5. I'm going to go ahead and subtract x. I end up with 2x minus 3 equals 5. Add 3. 2x equals 8. So x is going to equal 4. It doesn't specify what you need to do, so you solve for x and that's fine. The next one here, I also have an isosceles trapezoid, and these two legs are congruent. So I'm going to take these two expressions and make them equal each other. Subtract 2x from both sides. 5x equals 5. Divide both sides by 5, and x equals 1. Okay. If you need a pause now for anyone to catch up and write down the work, go ahead and do that. The second part of these notes, part 1, is going to be the mid-segment. So using the mid-segment of a trapezoid. So remember the mid-segment equals 1/2 times base 1 plus base 2. So if the mid-segment is here, I end up with x plus 2 equals 1/2 times, and then I want to go ahead and take the two bases. So I get 4x minus 10 plus 8. So 4x plus 2 equals 1/2 times 4x. Negative 10 plus 8 is a minus 2. And so then from here, you're going to go ahead and bring down the x plus 2 equals, and you're going to distribute this 1/2. So what you're saying is 1/2 times 4 is going to become 2x minus 1/2 times 2 is 1. So I'm going to go ahead and solve for x. Subtract x from both sides. I get 2 equals x minus 1. Add 1 to both sides, and x equals 3. Okay, so remember when you're distributing 1/2, the reason it's becomes 2x minus 1 is because 1/2 times 4x minus 1/2 times 2. And if you put this in your calculator, what this is really saying is 1/2 times 4 over 1, which is 4 over 2, which is 2. Same thing for the other one, 1/2 times 2 over 1 becomes 2 over 2, which is 1. And that's how I got 2x and I got 1. You can also just plug it into your calculator and get the same thing when you're multiplying. So at times you'll get decimals, but it should only be a half, like 5.5 or 7.5. Okay, so the next one, we're going to do the same thing. And we're going to go ahead and say our mid-segment equals, so 2x plus 11 equals 1/2 times 10 plus 8x minus 12. You have to know how to combine like terms in order to do this. So 2x plus 11 stays the same. 1/2 times, I'm going to put my 8x, and then my like terms, 10 minus 12 becomes a minus 2. And then I'm going to do the same thing. 2x plus 11 equals, distribute that 1/2 inside the parentheses. And so, if you think about what we talked about before, 1/2 times 8 over 1, you get 8 over 2. So 1/2. So really what you're saying is half of this number becomes 4x. And then 1/2 times 2 is minus 1. So from here I'm going to solve, subtract 2x from both sides. Add 1. And then divide. So x equals 6. Okay. And that is part 1.